While leaving Chad to his own devices, I've come to meet up with Paul Martin, a former British Museum curator. He moved to Japan to immerse himself in the world of the samurai sword.
So if I were to ask you, what to you actually defines the Japanese sword, the katana? What's the qualities?
Well, a good sword should not bend, should not break, and should cut well.
Yeah.
But the Japanese sword has all of these attributes, but it's much more powerful than a mere weapon. It's a spiritual icon. It's a beautiful art object. It's a symbol of the Japanese nation.
But what is so special about it? Well, one thing is the materials it's made from. High in the mountains, 6 hours from Tokyo, iron in the form of a black sand is collected from the riverbeds and is smelted with charcoal to form a unique kind of steel, tamahagane. And a Japanese sword is not considered authentic unless it is made from this. Tamahagane is produced only once a year. They create a 2-ton block of it, and it is only made available to the elite swordsmiths. But to the Japanese, the importance of the katana is so much more than this mystic metal. They believe that a warrior's soul lives in his sword. And from the very outset, every process is carried out with ritual. The tamahagane is created in a purpose-built structure called a Tatara.
This is astonishing, isn't it?
It's an amazing place.
What exactly is going on in here?
Every 20 to 30 minutes, they're putting in large amounts of sand iron and charcoal. And this goes on regularly for 72 hours.
72 hours?
Yeah.
That's astonishing. And it's always attended?
Always attended.
And presumably the reason for that is because they want the iron sand to absorb the carbon to make that alloy, which is steel. It strikes me that it looks like an altar. But the whole atmosphere in here, from everybody, the spectators and the workers, is very reverential, very religious.
Yeah, it is definitely a spiritual place.
The real payoff is going to happen very early tomorrow morning when those walls bulge and it gives birth to the tamahagane. And so I'm going to get some sleep and come back bright and early.
Finding the train was easy once I found the train station. On the way to Okayama to see what the Japanese have to say about sword making.
Meanwhile, I'm back at 5 in the morning to witness the final steps of this ancient ritual. The specialized steel has been smelting in the furnace for 3 days now. At last, the men start to break down the clay walls. Inside is the block of tamahagane, the molten metal that Japanese swordsmiths have relied on for centuries.
Inside there is the tamahagane, this unique material that makes the unique sword, the katana. So they're now raking the charcoal off the top layer. The heat is unbelievable. If you think you felt the heat from a fire, from a coal fire or wood fire, heat of molten metal is scorching the face.
As day breaks, the final coals are raked away to reveal a solidified mass of metal. And at the core of this cocoon is the pure tamahagane.
Having made his way down from the mountains, Paul Martin caught up with me in Okayama. And he has graciously agreed to exercise some of his hard-earned cachet and introduce me into a tightly closed circle of elite Japanese swordsmiths, who are still using the techniques perfected by their ancestors and passed along through the generations. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Master Ono Yoshimitsu. Our blade begins life as a rough, coarse piece of metal which was produced in the very same foundry by the very same process that Mike has just witnessed. That's full of impurities right now? I mean, it looks like it's
very pure. It's 99% pure steel.
A Japanese sword is made by wrapping a hard yet brittle U-shaped layer of steel around a softer but much tougher inner core. The hard steel will take and hold a razor edge, but would shatter like glass without the support of the softer steel. Raw tamahagane is broken down into small chunks, which are then beaten into flat plates. And these flat plates are used to sort hard from soft. But just exactly how are the properties of each plate judged?
What doesn't break cleanly becomes the core steel. And what breaks cleanly is the outer steel.
Right, because this is harder because it shatters.
Yeah.
Right, like a glass would shatter. Okay. Okay, so it's really a selection process. So here we are, smashing steel chunks to bits, sorting as we go. If it shatters, it will become the hard cutting edge. And if it bends and tears, we'll use it to form the tough inner core. Once having sorted all our plates, we are now ready to forge weld them together. So we take all the itsy bitsy bits and we stack them up like pieces of a 3D puzzle. Heated to the proper temperature, steel can be mechanically formed without risking damage to its molecular microstructure.
As you can see, he's making an incision here.
By folding it back on itself, you are essentially kneading steel dough. You see, what you want is all your ingredients, be they eggs and flour or carbon and iron, evenly dispersed. Happily, the byproduct of this mixing process is that you are squeezing out entrapped air pockets and driving impurities to the surface.
He said, would you like to have a go?
Yeah? It's okay? Wow. Thank you.
Pump it a little bit harder and then turn the steel over. When the flames begin, they're a very blue colour. And then as we near the optimum temperature, they become very yellow. No straw. Straight in, hammer it out a bit more. To about 1 centimetre. All right. Okay. Okay, put the chisel in. It's right down by your...
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ono-san makes it look easy. But let me tell you, that power hammer requires a good deal of finesse.
What does the Japanese board game Go? A minute to learn and a lifetime to master. Although this is obviously more than a minute to learn, it's quite evidently a lifetime to master. I mean, he doesn't have little thermometers, you know, he can't stick his infrared. You know, I brought my little digity gauge here. Turn around, Paul, we can see all these people. Hi, this is our sound man. He's been absolutely excellent. But, you know, look, he's got all his little gadgets that he brings to the job with him, right? You know? The series producer, he's got his gadgets he brings to the job with him. Nice watch, by the way. I've never learned to properly judge a steel's temperature by gauging its color. I understand it, but I don't know it because I'm trained, you know, with a calculator. I mean, and he does it all with his eye.
Now we've got two different blends of steel, both beaten into submission and folded to perfection. And pretty soon here, it's gonna start to look an awful lot like a sword. I'm here in Japan with Ono-san, and we've just now got our two steels separated and pounded to perfection. The hard steel is to be made into a jacket, which will become the cutting edge, and the softer steel will become the inner core. These two pieces will now be welded together, forge welded under intense heat and pressure from the hammer into one. And then we'll begin the process of drawing the blade out. And now is when it's really going to begin to take the shape of a Japanese sword. Well, now it might look like a sword, but a sword it ain't. Until it's been heat treated, it's just another hunk of steel. And now stick close here because the devil's in the details. The process begins with a mixture of watery clay applied to the back half of the blade. And this will slow down the rapid cooling effects that it will go through when plunged into the quench tank. In the end, you'll actually be able to see a wavy transition between the soft and hard steels, and this is known as the hamon, which translates literally as the badge of the blade.
The moment of truth is upon us. We've turned off all the lights and we've waited till dusk because what we want to see is the color of the steel, and the way Ono-san will judge the temperature is not with a thermometer, it's not by feeling the heat, it's by looking at it. Look at this. You can see the line of the clay where he's applied the clay. So you will see that that is going to be the exact spot where the hamon comes up. That is amazing.
Okay, the make it or break it moment.
Notice how he went straight in. And look at this. The blade has begun to take on that characteristic curve. Ono-san, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm humbled. Okay, thank you.
I'm still in Japan to witness the final step in the creation of a samurai sword, the polish. It's the ultimate finishing touch. The polish is an essential part of the blade. The finer the polish, the less the drag, the faster and cleaner the cut. I'm with Fujishiro Sensei, a master of the art. Each sword can take up to 2 weeks to bring to a full polish. He uses a series of ever finer polishing stones until he ends up with a paper-thin wafer.
Rubbing there, he can actually feel the grain of the blade. I mean, that's the real art, isn't it?
It doesn't get much closer to perfection than this.
That's astonishing. Sensei, domo arigato gozaimasu.
Okay, time to go home and see what Chad's been up to.